Hello, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's biotech pitch session. We have five amazing companies for you today that are really on the cutting edge of medicinal and therapeutic development. Biotech, in my opinion, is one of the most promising areas in the equity crowdfunding space. I've really developed a thesis on this industry that biopharma is a big blind spot generally for traditional VCs and angel investors, as they obviously often don't want to invest because these companies are too early, don't have enough meaningful trial data, and therefore too risky. And then once these companies do have enough trial data, it's often too late to invest. The valuation has already gone up quite a bit. So I think it's a big blind spot that I think really positions the retail investor perfectly to invest in the biopharma space if you can really find de-risked opportunities. With that, I want to introduce Brian, our CTO here at Kingscrowd. Brian, how are you?
Doing well, Teddy. Thanks. And very excited to see these pitches. I think, a lot of times with investment crowdfunding, people think, hey, you have to be a B2C company or a consumer company. We see tons of super viable, super interesting bio, med tech, pharma deals, and we're going to be able to look at some of those today.
Absolutely. And just a reminder, you'll be able to get the free unlocked reports and the analysis that Kingscrowd has put together on all the companies presenting today. So they'll be unlocked for 24 hours. All you have to do is create an account on kingscrowd.com. And if you go to the resources tab on your Zoom at the bottom, you'll be able to get links to the Kingscrowd pages for all these companies. So with that, would love to introduce our first presenter, Ben at Foment Bio.
First, I'd like to thank Kingscrowd for having me and for supporting Foment, which I will present to the audience today. So I'm Ben Klabina, the CEO and co-founder of Foment Bio, and what we're doing is developing a platform of transient regenerative gene therapies aiming to reverse the microvasculature rarefaction and restorative tissue function from damage downstream of aging and cardiometabolic disease. So really the world is in an epidemic of aging and cardiometabolic dysfunction, and conditions arising from cardiometabolic diseases are responsible for 40% of deaths annually. And so what this is as we age and as we get exposed to different environmental factors, and really especially in the West, diet and lifestyle choices, our metabolism doesn't function as efficiently as it should, and it results in a bunch of harmful substances that remain at elevated levels throughout the bloodstream. So you're looking at higher blood sugar, high cholesterol, blood pressure, and really chronic inflammation throughout the vasculature. And what this results in is a slow but progressive breakdown of the microvasculature, and eventually leading to degeneration and dropout. Now, what this looks like at the tissue level, I've kind of depicted here. When you start on the left, this is healthy tissue with high vessel density. But as you start to experience that degeneration and dropout with the chronic inflammation, it drives this rarefaction or rarefication of those vessels. And that results in kind of hibernating cells, or what they're known as senescent cells. And eventually this leads to cell death and fibrosis. And as this occurs over time, as you can imagine, the tissue starts to lose its functionality, and you start to see this clinically in a decline in organ function. And so what this plot at the bottom is depicting is, as you advance in the rarefication along the x-axis to the right, you see that the organ function starts to decline along with it. And so what we're trying to do is, with our gene therapy, is administer our plasmid constructs, which then drive exosome production in vivo and lead to a reestablishment of the microvasculature. And as we do that, we hope to pull whole organs or patients back up that decline as we restore tissue function. So our approach really leverages natural healing cascades that everyone has within their body, and we do so by delivering our small gene constructs, what are known as plasmid DNAs. And what this is just a small circle of DNA that encodes for a gene of interest. And our our genes of interest actually activate internal healing pathways within the cells, the end result being an enhanced exosome release. And what exosomes are small extracellular vesicles that are able to transport different factors, proteins, and mRNA or microRNA in between cells and actually alter the recipient cell's behavior. And what these exosomes have been shown to do is activate resident stem cells throughout tissue, drive cell growth. They actually resolve inflammation, modulate autoimmunity, and critically, as I mentioned, they're able to restore the microvasculature in the tissue and actually rescue some of those hibernating cells that really start to result in the organ or tissue function decline. And when you rescue these cells, that's when you can start to see a reestablishing of the organ function. So my co-founder, his lab, he's a cardiologist, MD, PhD, and he's run a research lab for decades now. And they really have a number of different rat and mice models of heart failure, but this one in particular really speaks to kind of a lifestyle that is pretty prominent in the West, where you put these mice on high-fat diets, and around 22, 23 weeks, you really start to see a decline in the function of the heart. And so that's what's depicted here in this plot. In the blocks on the red, in the red, that is the high-fat diet. And as you can see, starting at week 22, you see a substantial decline in the ejection fraction or the pumping efficiency of the heart of the mice. Now, when we deliver our treatment at week 27, we're actually able to regain this loss of function and restore some of that ejection fraction and really return what would end up being quality of life to that mouse. And so kind of proving our thesis that one of the driving factors behind this reestablishing of the organ function and kind of remodeling the tissue is the fact that we are improving the vessel density in that tissue. And so these are our two constructs, and they're in both. This is the plot on the left, the bar chart on the left shows a pig model of heart failure. So this is actually a pig study. The one on the right is a rat model of acute myocardial infarction rather. And as you can see, our plasmids in both cases are able to improve the vessel density in that cardiac tissue, roughly 40 to 50% over the course of a couple of weeks. And this is what really leads to our benefit clinically. And so we've taken our clinical lead construct. It's been in multiple phase 2 clinical studies. This is probably our most promising result, where the worst off patients, heart failure patients, were observing the most benefit from our therapy. And this is, as you can see on the ejection fraction again, and this is in humans, we saw a pretty pronounced dose effect. And so that's really what you want to see. And this really showed up in the clinical outcomes throughout the course of the study. We also did a couple of studies in wound healing and scar prevention. Again, we saw trends in efficacy from both a patient evaluation of their own scars and the physician's evaluation as well. And then this picture on the right is actually another pig study, and I include it because it's pretty powerful visually when you can see the bottom here is the treated pig, and you can see that you can barely make out any scars along the incision lines. But in the top and the control, it's pretty clear where those incisions were, and you can see the scarring. So we've established that we have a biological effect, and we actually have a second generation construct.
30 more seconds, Ben.
Okay, that has some administration and dosing advantages that are really allowing us to look at the companion animal opportunity. And that's what our Start Engine campaign is looking at raising funding for. We've had initial discussions and are actually under NDA with a large companion animal therapeutic company who's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of the clinical development on that side, because it's not our core. And so we're really hoping to advance that project with them, and that's what we're trying to raise money for. So this is what our product pipeline looks at today. or looks like today. And if you're interested, we'd love to hear from you. But we're running a campaign on Start Engine, and you can find it at that link there.
Great. Thanks you so much, Ben. And for those that don't know yet, I don't know if we've announced it, but I can say Kingscrowd Capital has invested in Foment Bio. So if you're at this webinar,
Yeah.
you're getting initial news on that. But yeah, so
Thanks
Ben,
again.
yeah, of course. So I'd love to ask about why you are going after the veterinary market first and getting this treatment commercialized in the companion animal market as opposed to continuing on with your human trials that you have had for your first lead candidate.
Well, so it's really a timing and capital issue. So internally, Foment, like our company, our team, all of our background and expertise and experience is in human clinical development, and that's what our focus is going to be on. And we're internally planning to develop the second generation construct in kidney disease and heart failure in humans. But in parallel, and initially a little bit staggered from a timing perspective, just because of the commercial opportunity in the companion animal space being a lot quicker. We've actually had a couple conversations with some therapeutic developers in the space, and as I mentioned, we're under NDA with a major player in the market. And really, we're looking at it as we can license this to them, support them with the manufacturing and some scientific consulting, and help guide them from the drug technology perspective, but allow them to really run with it and develop it in the animal space. And in parallel, we'll focus on IND enabling studies for humans. And if successful, the timing would work out to where in 2, maybe 3 years, it'll start to commercialize and really be able to fund our later stage human trials with the cash flow from that. So it's more of a timing kind of arbitrage, but also we're hoping that this early effort allows us to do a lot less fundraising later on and prevent, those dilutive, massive equity raises to fund the later stage trials on the human side.
That's actually a fascinating thing. Teddy and I were talking about at one point that I don't know that we've seen that with other companies, but it's just very interesting that instead of, yes, you need to get to this endpoint where there's the huge market opportunity, but here's this kind of near-term viable path where actually kind of going through, the companion animals market can help get you there. Unfortunately, we are super short on time. So, but another 10 seconds.
Well, real quick, it turns out it is a massive market, and like it in itself could be billions of dollars of available market if it's successful. What enables us to go after it, though, is our choice of plasmid DNA constructs. The cost is such that we can actually be a viable option for people paying out of pocket, whereas a lot of the cell and gene therapy products, they just aren't, because they're tens of thousands of dollars. So it's really kind of a unique situation where we can get that regenerative cell type therapy benefit, but with this off the shelf vial that is cost effective.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Ben. And for everyone else, if you have Q&A, feel free to pop them in the chat. Ben will stick around for a few minutes backstage and answer those. All right, Teddy, you want to introduce our next guest and we'll bring him up?
Yeah, so next we have Paul from Neurocharis. Paul, take it away.
Great, thank you. Nice to be here. My name's Paul Blum.
Turn it
I'm
over.
founder and CEO of Neurocharis. Our company is a revenue-generating drug development corporation located in Monterey, California. The mission of Neurocharis is to help treat pain and at the same time as we do that, fight the opioid epidemic. We're developing pain drugs at Neurocharis, and the reason is largely because of what the standard method of trying to treat pain does to people. Those are opioids, narcotics. So our company has been working on developing alternative pain drugs. We use something called the Apollo platform, which is shown in the slide here. I invented this thing to target and deliver drug assets to treat human pain. And okay, there's all different types of pain, right? We're focusing on 3: acute post-surgical pain, migraine pain, and chronic pain. And the rationale for that is that the standard of care for all three of these medical indications is not adequate, even though the market sizes for successful drug treatment are huge. And one reason to explain this lack of innovation is that pain was never viewed as a disease that could be cured. So all of our drugs are administered locally by injection or patch, and either on the wound itself or by nerve block. Our drugs are not oral drugs. They are not systemic drugs. They're used locally. They have no effect on the brain, and most importantly, are not addictive.
Paul,
Our
sorry, one more thing. Just making sure we're looking at the right slide. We're seeing the opioid crisis in America. Are you still on the
Right.
same slide? Yep. Okay, great. Continue. Sorry.
Yep. So for all of the drugs I'm going to talk about, we have a fair amount of preclinical data, which means in vitro and in vivo data using animal models, and separate patents on each of the drugs. All right, so I designed the Apollo system to target the neurons that control sensation and pain using both rational drug design and computational methods. The target cells are called sensory neurons. Because of this, our drugs have no effect on motor neurons or on muscles. So this makes the Neurocharis drugs completely different from anesthetics or narcotics. The most important novel aspect of our drugs is their unexpectedly long duration of action. The Apollo system is sort of like therapeutic antibodies in the sense that all of our drugs are about 80% similar, while the different parts can be used to create other drugs, which is what's shown on this slide, that treat other medical indications. But today I'm just talking about pain. The overlapping features of the Apollo drugs, once again, like therapeutic antibodies, simplify manufacturing, they ensure safety and efficacy, and these things extend the asset value, reduce the cost of production, and minimize regulatory hurdles. So, like therapeutic antibodies. So the first drug I want to talk about is this one, N001. This drug is to treat acute post-surgical pain. It's currently supported by a $2.7 million federal award, phase 2 SBIR. We hope to get the drug into humans next year, clinical trials next year. To help reach that goal, we have a team of doctors from Stanford Medical School and the Cleveland Clinic, helping through collaboration, advice, medical guidance. The main work here is on manufacturing, more safety, and some efficacy. Our second drug is called NL17. This drug is to treat migraine. The way this drug works is by it attenuates, which means it shuts down overactive sensory neurons that are stimulated by a neuropeptide called CGRP during a migraine. So we anticipate more non-dilutive federal funding for this drug. And we also recently recruited a team of top US migraine doctors to assist the work because of their recognition of the novelty of our approach and the need for better drugs. The last drug I want to share with you is about chronic pain, N19A, specifically chronic pain caused by what's referred to as nerve regrowth. Nerve regrowth results when damage to sensory neurons occurs that can stimulate these neurons to grow again, and they grow in places you don't want them to grow. So for example, into the spine, you get back pain, into your joints, you get arthritis. So we're really excited at Neurocharis because of this new chronic pain asset. It treats the pain as well as the morphine and simultaneously reverses nerve regrowth. That means it has the potential to cure chronic pain by reversing the underlying cause. A patent application just got filed for this one. So we're raising, and if we get new investment, we will use this to accelerate our drug development efforts into the clinic. And I want to thank you for listening to me, and I want you to consider helping us fighting pain and the opioid epidemic. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul. That was great. Brian, I know you didn't get a question on the last pitch, so
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. Interesting. I mean, very important work obviously being done just with some of the problems around opioids and, addictive pain relieving drugs. I guess what, if any, trade-offs are there? So it sounds like it's non-addictive, it's long-term. Does it cost a little more? How's the cost look? Like, what are the other trade-offs that you're playing with in terms of this drug and this
Right. There
potential?
are some. I mean, these are biologics. These are what we call protein drugs, not small molecule drugs. So yes, it takes more to do the manufacturing. The price point is probably going to be a little higher, but with the opportunities of scale up, we can bring that price point down. So I don't see that as necessarily limiting. I think it has more to do with conducting proper clinical trials on innovative pain drugs and comparing them to what people currently use, not the negative control, but to narcotics, and see how well they really do. So thanks.
Teddy?
Got it. And so you certainly have some very compelling preclinical data. So I'm curious if you can talk to us about kind of what the next steps and timelines are for dosing humans and what kind of risks you see moving from preclinical to clinical.
Sure. Yeah, no. So these drugs N001, the first one for acute pain, that's all about the fact that we think the, fastest to market because of the shortest clinical trial for acute pain relative to migraine or relative to chronic pain. So we're hoping that one, and that one is out in front. We'll get there first. We hope to get into people next year. We are pretty well supported to get through our IND application, get approval, and start. And we have a lot of help on clinical trial design for that drug. The migraine drug, the second one, that's a little different. We've got these new team of experts that have strong opinions about how to move the product forward. And then the last drug, it just fell into our lap. We're so excited because it's one thing to treat pain, it's something else to cure pain. So that I think maybe that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of long term, which of your drugs do you believe has the most potential in terms of market size and
Well,
um,
they're
adoption?
all big markets, but I think the chronic pain is maybe in some ways the most important. This is largely there's nothing there, and so people have no other choice but narcotics, and then there's all the side effects of narcotics, and that's the one I would love to see come get all the way there.
In terms of business success, what does that look like if the trials go well, clinical trials? Is this something you'd license? Would you have partners get acquired? What does that look like?
I would imagine there'll be so-called merger and acquisition at some point, or even just complete out licensing of the technology. I mean, we're open, we're happy to talk. And I think doing a true chronic pain clinical trial would be a big trial, would be pricey. There haven't been any. So it's about time we did one for humans.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul. We
Thank you.
appreciate it today, and turn it
Yeah,
back
thanks so
over to
much,
Teddy.
Paul. That was great. That
All right.
important work you're doing. So
Thank
appreciate
you
you
so
being here.
much. Bye-bye.
All righty. Next, we have Diane from CenoGuard.
Hi, I'm Diana. AI tells me that 80 to 90% of you people listening to me know someone who has or has had breast cancer. So this is for you. CenoGuard is developing a non-radiation breakthrough in breast cancer treatment. My mom did not get to see her granddaughter, my daughter, grow up due to the radiation that she received following her breast cancer surgery. Imagine being diagnosed with cancer and given only two treatment choices. One is really severe, like a mastectomy, and the other requires treatment daily for 6 weeks. And on top of that, you don't live anywhere near a treatment center. Where is the third option for this disease? CenoGuard's passion is to make breast cancer treatment easier and available to everybody. Right now, there's 300,000 women diagnosed annually in the US with breast cancer. And that shift is going more and more every year to younger women, meaning women who are in the middle of their careers, who are raising young families, who cannot get the radiation they deserve because it's not available nearby them, they can't afford it, or they're not allowed to take 6 days, 6 weeks off of work. In addition to that, there's a whole bunch of other women who should be in this funnel of being treated for breast cancer But 25% of women who should be screened for mammograms annually do not get them because they fear mastectomy or radiation. So CenoGuard is asking you to help solve this problem. Here's a little bit of the details on radiation following lumpectomy. You need to do it to kill any remaining cells that could have been left behind. You can't see them, they're just there. And so the patient goes daily for up to 6 weeks. I've got friends that have gone 9 weeks. It not only is clinically toxic in that, in my mother's case, it increased her risk of getting heart disease by threefold. It increases the risk of any other kind of cancer, and it decreases the sensitivity of the breast itself, meaning there's a lot of sexual and emotional and mental problems that also go with it. It's expensive, and it isn't accessible everywhere. In fact, this isn't just a US problem. This is a global issue. Other than the Americas and Europe, there are no radiation oncologists or radiation units or isotopes available. So all the rest of the women in the world have a choice of mastectomy or death. In fact, in Africa, the same word is used for breast cancer as is used for death. So CenoGuard has come up with a solution to this issue. We use proven technology that's been around for 25 years that has been known to kill breast cancer cells, but it's never had the innovation that we have patents to be delivered in this way. It's done in a one and done setting. The tumor is excised by the surgeon, and immediately following that, a probe is inserted that freezes any cells that might be lingering in that surgical cavity. There's no toxicities. It can be available anywhere. There's no radiation team required. Instead of weeks of daily treatment, you have one procedure. Instead of clinical and cosmetic toxicities, there's no toxicities. Instead of having limited availability, it's accessible everywhere. What we've done is we have created a system of a cryoablation unit that drops temperatures down to really cold, and then several different sizes of disposable probes that attach to the unit, and the size is equivalent to the size of the cavity where the tumor has just been excised. We make the probe go super cold, and as you can see, you get an ice ball. Any cell touching that ice ball dies. Patients want this. There are patients who have had other comorbidities, and to have radiation might exaggerate those comorbidities. Another patient wants as little as possible because she just got married and wants to keep her sexuality. Another patient is absolutely petrified of radiation. And other patients know it's horrible and they just go through it knowing it's horrible. In a survey done on women in the United States recently diagnosed but hadn't selected their treatment yet, 93% of them would pay $5,000 out of their own pocket just to avoid radiation. So our procedure can be done in community hospitals. It decreases the cost and it increases patient flow. The whole point is you want to get as many women in a day as possible. Instead of 4 or 5, you can get 8 to 10 while still treating their cancer, and to cut the cost. The current existing treatment time is about 45 minutes. The National Science Foundation, who funded this, said we had to get to 20, and we were able to get to 10 minutes in procedure time. The National Science Foundation has funded us so far over $1 million. They're geared up to give us some more money. Whatever they give us, whatever we can get from the private sector, meaning you, they will match 50%, no strings attached. We've also been the only non-university or scientific presenter at the annual National Consortium of Breast Cancer Centers in 24, 25, and we're geared up for 26. We've done this with animals with great success. Investors in healthcare look for certain criteria before they invest. They look for cost, quality, access, and go to market. In other words, our cost is about 1/3 of the current cost. Our quality is that we avoid the heart and cancer risks, the emotional issues. We are accessible everywhere, not just in well-resourced hospitals
30
or those
seconds, Diana.
affiliated with a university. Go to market, we've done this before, very successful. We've got a team of experts in this area. We want you to invest in CenoGuard because we can treat breast cancer anywhere. The National Science Foundation is the hardest foundation to get money from, and they believe in us. We turn it into a single procedure. It avoids any radiation toxicities. It's a big market with nothing meeting that demand. We've got lots of patents, expert team. My daughter's getting married next month, but my mom won't be there. Please invest in CenoGuard.
All right, Diana, thanks so much for the presentation. I wanted to ask about, so given that kind of radiation therapy after a lumpectomy kind of has a lot of, decades probably of data behind it. So
Yeah.
what do you really need to see in terms of outcomes in order to gain acceptance, not just from patients, but from oncologists?
Non-inferiority, which we know we can do because there's been over 250 publications showing that at minus 40 degrees, you can kill breast cancer cells. So we have to show that we can do that. We've already shown it in animals. We have to show that we can do that in a cavity, not in a solid tumor.
Now, in terms of, you mentioned the market opportunity where it's not only some of the developing nations or other places that don't have typical capabilities to be able to treat breast cancer, but even like community hospitals. What do you see as kind of your go-to-market? Are you starting international? Are you starting with the small, US-based places? What are you thinking there?
We're definitely starting with the community hospitals in the US. We did a survey, and the big universities and settings that have breast cancer treatment, they love it, but they're only going to send the patients that live really far away or hated radiation. They weren't really going to offer it to the people that they can already treat. When we asked the community hospitals, 100% of them wanted to offer it to every single patient and wanted to begin a breast cancer care service available to the community so they could stay in business and to provide the service to their community. So
Wow.
that's where the money is, and the patients.
And this sounds like one of those opportunities where, as an investor, if I were considering this, right, you're not just looking at like what is the breast cancer treatment market today. This is potentially growing the market and making it more accessible to all these people that aren't getting that, or like you said, for various reasons, deciding not to do it.
Absolutely.
Great. I know we're
Great,
very
thanks
short
so
on time.
much.
I apologize, but I'll
Yeah.
hand it over to Teddy.
Yeah, thanks so much, Diana. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Yep, and feel free again. Yeah, we'll start bringing up the next guest, and then if anyone has more Q&A for Diana and CenoGuard or any of the other guests, feel free to drop it into the chat, and they can answer those when they go backstage. All right, Teddy, I'll hand it over to you. Bring up the next guest.
Yeah. All right, next we have Joel from Ajna Bio.
Perfect timing. There we go. Hey, Joel.
That was the timing we're
Hey,
looking
Teddy,
for.
Brian.
Hey, Joel, great to see you.
Good
Hey.
to see you.
We'll hand it over to you. Take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Joel Stanley. I am the founder and CEO of Ajna Biosciences. And put very simply, we turn highly medicinal plants into FDA-approved drugs. And this is a new phenomenon. You'll notice that really 99.99% of all our pharmaceuticals are single molecule, usually synthetic, very unnatural, whereas we used to get our medicine from plants. I've spent the better part of 2 decades innovating in plant medicine. And my first company was called Charlotte's Web, a company that with 7 million investment, I took through a successful IPO and to over 2 billion in market cap. And it's everything that I learned at Charlotte's Web that set the platform for this company, Ajna Biosciences. So I'm going to recap a little bit of what Charlotte's Web is. Some of you may remember the story of Charlotte Figi told by Sanjay Gupta many years ago. This aired in August 2013. But Charlotte Figge was having as many as 400 violent seizures every week, and her family was completely out of pharmaceutical options to try. So our company really solved a problem there for Charlotte with a very simple plant extract that was high in CBD. Charlotte wasn't an isolated incident. Charlotte had about a 99.9% seizure reduction, and that story really went worldwide. From CNN, was on The View, to Dateline. We also changed many laws in favor of, especially CBD laws, but also for medical cannabis, and I'm very proud of that. But what I realized in that process is that we were just barely scratching the surface. That was really Charlotte's story, and thousands of other families like Charlotte was the first time that the world saw that a simple plant extract sometimes can solve a problem that none of our highly unnatural pharmaceuticals can. So I left the board of Charlotte's Web almost 5 years ago now, and started Ajna Biosciences to move highly efficacious, highly medicinal plants through the FDA process so that one day we can have them covered by insurance, and just have more natural options. The problem we're solving at large is that people really do want natural options, but they really can't trust plant medicine from the dietary supplement industry. It's largely unregulated, and there's not a lot of quality control, so you can't reproduce your therapeutic outcome. When we get diagnosed with a disease, we move to our doctors, and our doctors can only legally prescribe, and insurance can only cover that which has been FDA approved. So we merged these two worlds together, and we built a platform to do it not only with our first drugs in the pipeline, but over and over in perpetuity. Now, in order to develop botanical drugs and be more than dietary supplements, it actually takes a lot of work, and we've spent the last 4 years doing this. You have to have a specialized laboratory infrastructure capable of characterizing sometimes thousands of molecules in a complex botanical. Chemistry, manufacturing, controls, a lot of that is really characterization of those molecules. Keep in mind, conventional pharma is one molecule at a time, so it's relatively easy to do there compared to botanical drugs. So we built our core competency with a specialized infrastructure and all of the chemistry expertise to create standardized botanicals really for the first time. And only the technology has existed in the last 15 years that allows us to partner with nature in this way. So I think it's really important. Then, of course, any pharmaceutical has to have the right regulatory approach. And we have some of the best folks in the world on our team for botanical. And I'll just highlight Zhenhui Dao here. Zhenhui's on our team, and he worked inside the FDA for almost 17 years, and he wrote the FDA's botanical drug development guidance. So literally wrote the rule book by which we move botanicals through the FDA process. Then clinical design, clinical expertise, every drug has to have this, and we have really some of the best in the world. Dr. Oren Davinsky is our chief medical physician, and being that we're starting with a cannabinoid drug for autism, he's the only person to have designed clinical trials successfully for a cannabis-based high CBD drug called Epidiolex through the FDA that was approved in 2018. These are what I call the four critical components to overcome the barriers to entry to move botanicals through the FDA. And this is what we've spent the last 4 years really mastering. Just to talk about our pipeline just briefly, I'm just really going to stay on drug number one for time's sake. But this drug is moving into phase 2. We have an investigational new drug application on file with the FDA, and we're cleared by the FDA to move into phase 2 pediatric for irritability associated with autism. Now, this is really important because there are only 2 drugs available for autism spectrum disorder. Both of these are atypical antipsychotics, and they have about the worst side effect profile you can imagine. Now, we're bringing a simple plant extract that we've observed over thousands of families. We've seen strong efficacy signal within autism without that level of side effects. So we're solving a huge unmet need with this first drug. And just a snapshot of all the drugs in the pipeline, I'll say all of these have some level of blockbuster potential. Drug number 2 comes from psilocybin mushrooms, and it's basically like a conventional antidepressant replacement. It's a better antidepressant. We really deserve a more natural option for anxiety. Then PTSD, and moving on into other central nervous system disorders over time. Put quite simply, for investors looking at a company that's going to impact billions of lives while disrupting a paradigm that I think we all know needs to be disrupted, taking really ancient modalities that have worked for so long, combining them with brand new technology to create botanical drugs, a new class of drugs. And we're really at the forefront of pioneering this whole new category of more natural medicines covered by insurance. We can move into Q&A.
Great. Thanks so much, Joel. It's great. So I wanted to just quickly ask, so your first two indications, autism and anxiety. So why did you start with those two use cases?
Yep, great question. So we actually started, keep in mind, we have a DEA Schedule 1 licensed laboratory. I can't really cover all of that. And so in order to work with some of the compounds we work with, like psilocybin, we have to have that. We're one of the first and the only one that I know of in the US that has a DEA manufacturing registration for psilocybin using botanical and not synthetic. So first we started there. But I made a partnership with my old company, Charlotte's Web, taking patented genetics for CBD and years of data that we made a partnership with Johns Hopkins early on to understand this phenomenon we saw within epilepsy and autism. So we had years of data on patented genetics, something we already knew worked. So that drug actually leapfrogged because of my years. It's like I've been working on that drug for almost 20 years because I built Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web's the manufacturer of that drug. It's the only company in town that can actually manufacture a complex botanical like that, which I'm very proud of. But to get down to the nuts and bolts of why we chose those two, people would think, are you a cannabis company and a psychedelics company? No, we're not. We're a botanical drug development company. Just so happens that these cannabinoids for autism spectrum disorder is our strongest efficacy signal and strongest safety signal, both of which are vital to the FDA. Next, you look at psilocybin, strong efficacy signal, known mechanism of action for the most part, and strong safety signal. So we've chosen the lowest hanging fruit from nature as our first botanical drugs because we know they work and we know they're safe.
Great. And then, so quick question in terms of just on the regulatory side, if a potential investor is looking at this, how do you think of, in terms of what you need to get done on the regulatory side if it's rescheduling? So you mentioned something related to psilocybin, right? Do you have an external risk in terms of whether people are moving that forward, or are these botanicals, when you derive it, really a completely separate class?
That's a really good question. So many, there is precedent, other Schedule 1 drugs. One case in point, synthetic THC has existed on the market. Single molecule doesn't work the same as the cannabis plant, of course, but it was Schedule 1 until the moment that Marinol dronabinol, that drug, was approved, and it's given its own scheduling. So as much as I'm a proponent of rescheduling these things that we know have medicinal value, as much as they're not toys and they're tools, I'm in favor of rescheduling. However, the landscape has changed. This is my first time to have true political and regulatory tailwinds getting a DEA Schedule 1 license. The FDA works great with us for these. They know that these are important therapeutics potentially. So it doesn't really impact us where it impacts the rest of the industry. But it's a really good question, and we often get confused with cannabis or state legal psilocybin programs, and this is not it. This is biotech.
You don't depend on that becoming legal someday. It's a completely separate thing. Awesome.
Correct. Well, we make at least some versions of it legal and covered by insurance, so that if that doesn't happen, at least people have some options here.
Awesome. Well, thank you for everything you're doing. And there's a quick question in the chat too, so maybe you can answer that. We do have to wrap things up. We got one more pitcher coming on here, but thanks again.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Joel. Great job. All righty. Last but certainly not least, Jim from Sunjam.
Thanks to Kingscrowd team for inviting Sunjam onto this great opportunity. I'm Jim Iverson, CEO of Sunjam Pharmaceutical. I'm gonna load up my deck here and get things moving. So
good to go.
Sunjam is focused on transforming systemic inflammation. From what we've learned, 70% of deaths are inflammatory related, and we're looking to change that. And when we think about inflammation, our focus is on reducing inflammation and its impact on age-related diseases and death. And recently it's been discovered this area called health span, which is the gap between focusing on longevity and the healthy years you have leading up to that longevity period. And in the United States, that's 12.4 years. What that means is that for 12.4 years before we die, you're dealing with some type of disability or disease. And we're looking at reducing, we're increasing the health span and increasing longevity at the same time. Our vision, we're looking at shaping health science so that every life will flourish. And we've got an incredible team that we've pulled together. We're really combining AI and the latest of technology and traditional medicine. And we've got, our team has led $730 million in exits. And I've, in my previous lives, I've built and led the exits of 5 companies. And the work that we're doing around inflammation and the hidden culprit behind most diseases is being picked up daily in every major journal that's out there. And the market is tremendous. It's valued at about $1.2 trillion across the 6 areas that we're focused on, which I'll get to in 1 minute. We've recently we've been named as an immunoregulator by Oppenheimer Research for the work that we're doing at combating inflammation as well as immunosenescence. We're a first-in-class therapeutic platform designed to save lives and reduce suffering by addressing inflammation at the source. The 6 areas that we're focused on are metabolic and liver disorder, substance abuse disorder, longevity and health span extension, infectious disease and respiratory, pain, CNS, muscular, skeletal, and immunoinflammation and oncology. We have a platform of 11 agents that we're working on, and then I'll move it to the most important slide. So these are our 5 lead assets. The way that we've approached repurposing small molecules and using technology, specifically AI, we've started in the discovery stage, and then we move through in vitro, in vivo, and then ultimately looking to get into humans. And we have 5 lead assets that are in or at phase 2. And we've completed our first phase 2 clinical trial with SJP002C for upper respiratory infection, including COVID. And we found through the results of that trial, which we've done with Duke University, that there's also an opportunity to use this drug for metabolics and fatty liver, MASH. We just started our phase 2 clinical trial for SJP001 for overindulgence of food and drink. We actually today we started dosing our first patient for this therapeutic, and I give important recognition to SJP005, which is for opioid use disorder. The National Institute of Drug Abuse has been sponsoring a program with us where we're testing this drug against against polysubstance use disorder, specifically methamphetamines. We're closing out a $5 million round, and we've got, this deck is 2 weeks old. We've closed about 200,000 more in the last 2 weeks, and so we've got about $1.1 million that's still open, and we've got 4 ways to invest, or 3 ways to invest. We're doing Reg CF with WeFunder. We've raised over $5 million with WeFunder on Reg CF, and we've also been able to leverage that money for some great strategic partnerships. We've also have several accredited investors through Reg D, and then most recently, we've opened up a donor-advised fund for philanthropic capital. So we're looking at changing the course of inflammation and the lives of billions of people. And I want to just touch on a couple of the things that we're currently working on that have become really exciting. One is that we've just completed the formulation and CMC work for our therapeutic for upper respiratory infection and COVID. So we're ready to go. Once we catch up with the clinical trials, we're ready to bring that product to market. We've, as I mentioned, we've done first person first visit today for 002 or 001. We have our business model is to de-risk on the clinical and regulatory side, bring our therapeutics to the end of phase 2, and find a licensing partner. We're currently engaged with Destin Partners, who's valued our 2 lead assets, and they're actively looking for licensees for SJP002C and 001. And we've just been approached by a clinical research organization, a clinical trial company that wants to fund the majority of our phase 3 study for 001, which is a real show of confidence and support. So that's going to play well into the advancement of licensing opportunities. And then we've just retained a marketing company to seek larger checks and prepare us for our capital raise in 2026, which we're looking to fund 2026 and 2027, getting all of our assets to the end of phase, our 5 lead assets to the end of phase 2. And then this week we just filed, based on the work that the sponsored work that NIDA has done, we've just published or submitted a paper for research and publication on methamphetamines. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Great, Jim. Thank you so much. Great job. I wanted to ask quickly, so, you have this amazing global patent portfolio, 60 plus patents or patents pending, 11 pipeline assets, 2 lead programs. So I wanted to ask, kind of given the capital expenditure required to commercialize drugs and these types of assets, how do you avoid the potential pitfall of trying to do too much too quickly?
Yeah, it's a great question. So our business model has been asset light to non-asset, where we look to bring our assets through the end of phase 2, and then that's where we're looking at getting a commercialization partner. And so the heavy lifting obviously gets into when we start doing a phase 2 clinical trial, but it gets heavier going into phase 3, and then ultimately commercialization. So my background has been in supply chain and building supply chain companies. So what I've learned in the life science space, combining traditional medicine and AI technology, it's a hurry up and wait industry. So when we just completed the phase 2 trial with Duke University, and while we were doing that, we were completing all the IND work and everything required to start the phase 2 work for our second therapeutic. And we're the way that we've designed our platform is that the benefit that we get from any single asset, it benefits all boats rise with a rising tide. So we're able to leverage, because of the repurposing that we're doing, all the work that we're doing. So it may look like we could be getting overextended with working on too many assets, but we're very, very deliberate and sensitive to looking at the valuation inflection points and advancing and focusing in those areas that are going to increase those inflection points.
And as a potential investor looking at Sunjam, I'm curious, when you take a look at the business, so it sounds like you acquire a lot of these and you kind of help get them through the different phases. Do you also have in-house development? Are you developing new drugs? Is there kind of similarities, or, like you said, lessons learned that you can share among the different patents that you have and the different drugs that you're developing?
Yeah, so we are the drug discovery company. We're combining molecules that have never been combined before, and we're filing patents around that. Interestingly enough, there's always an interest on new chemical entities, and because big pharma will think that new chemical entities have stronger patent ability, and there's a lot of different incentives around that. But after we develop, and now that we get the clinical results back, now we're saying, okay, if we were to take medicinal chemistry using AI and develop a new chemical entity, how much would that cost and how long would it take? And we're getting some incredible, remarkable results that costing between $500 million and $1 billion, and 6 to 8 years to if we were to build a new chemical entity, which is really interesting in itself. And one of the things that I learned from crowdfunding, a great lesson learned, is we've also been leveraging technology and the advancement of everything going on, and we've fractionalized our patent portfolio. So we've taken a small portion of our fractions. We want to return capital to our investors as quickly as humanly possible. And there's really two bites out of the apple that people get when they invest in us. They get a piece of a fractional royalty right of a patent portfolio. So when we license that technology for the life of that patent, they're going to get a distribution, and they still own their underlying investment in the company. So we're looking at returning capital to investors within 6 months of getting a licensing deal, which we're in discussions on now. And then we're also looking at increasing the value of the overall platform.
That's fascinating. So it's almost, again, not investment advice, but it sounds like almost making an investment is getting a diversified portfolio of these different things that may turn into future potential revenue streams. But
that's correct.
Very interesting. I apologize, we are so short on time, but thank you, Jim. We really appreciate it. And again, everyone else, make sure you check out the Sunjam Pharmaceuticals page on Kingscrowd. And with that, Teddy, I'll let you close things out.
Yeah, so great pitch session today. I think these companies really exemplify why I'm so excited about biotech and equity crowdfunding. I just think it's so many amazing, traction-rich, data-rich, clinical studies, so many great companies raising an equity crowdfunding. And I just think it's, again, like I mentioned at the beginning, I think it's a big opportunity for retail investors to kind of get in once you kind of find a de-risked biotech company to really get in before VCs. So yeah, Brian, any closing thoughts on?
I think, there's the financial return side of it, which obviously there's a lot of potential there depending on the traction and just some of the outcomes. But I think a lot of the reason that a lot of these opportunities can find success and with investment crowdfunding is people are investing because someone who has cancer, someone who's impacted by this. And even if you don't care about the financial outcome, to be able to have the potential impact on changing the future of having something that could solve some of these huge problems, I think is just a huge, huge testament to all the potential here. So I want to thank all of these founders who are just working on life-changing, future, super important, everything they're doing. And we hope that others will continue to use this, as a source to open it up to retail investors who want to support that, to give you capital, but also, be investors along that journey with you. So I think we can wrap things up there. Thank you, Teddy. Just as a reminder for anyone who's still watching, you can get all of the reports for all of the companies that we did today. So check out the resources tab, and we'll see everyone back here tomorrow for day 3 of Investment Crowdfunding Week.